Stacy Eldridge.
And how do you spell that?
Stacy, middle initial R, Eldridge, Eldridge.
And I'm gonna apologize, cause I think everything I've sent you has had 2 or less in Eldridge, so I'm sorry about that. Could you tell us about your education, please?
Yes. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Information Management and I have a Master's of Science in Computer Information Management, as well.
After obtaining your master's degree, what did you do for employment?
Yes, at that time, I was employed with the FBI as a forensic examiner on the computer analysis response team and I achieved the rank of senior forensic examiner during that time. And while in the FBI, I did continue my education and training by taking additional computer and technology classes specifically related to computer forensics, mobile phone forensics, tablets, iPads, things of that nature, and then I have since continued my education and training since I left the FBI, taking over 110 computer forensic and mobile forensic classes.
I am going to show you what I have marked as Defendant's Exhibit PPP, P as in Paul. Can you tell me what that is, please?
That is my CV.
Okay. And does that include all of your education, work experience, training, education?
Yes, it does.
And when was that last updated?
It was last updated this year in August.
Thank you. Move to admit PPP. Defendant's Exhibit PPP offered.
One foundational question, Judge, if I may?
Yes.
Ms. Eldridge, under the expert witness portion from October of 2011, it looks like it's incomplete there. Do you have the remaining information? United States District Court from the Central District of California, United States of America versus, and then it just says docket 11-. Do you have a complete case number or case name for that?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, Judge. No objection to the CD being admitted.
All right. I will show that PPP is admitted. Defendant's Exhibit PPP admitted. May I publish? You may. Defendant's Exhibit PPP published. May I call you Stacy?
You may.
Okay. I'm gonna give you a copy of PPP for you to refer to for one moment. So your first job after, sorry. May I proceed? Yes, you may. Thank you. Your first job after obtaining your master's was with the FBI, is that correct?
I attained my master's while I was in the FBI.
Okay. I'm sorry. How long did you work at the FBI?
For approximately almost 10 years.
While you were there, you worked for the computer analysis response team as a forensic examiner?
Yes.
Can you tell us what that is?
Yes. That is the personnel within the FBI that are responsible for gathering and maintaining and preserving digital evidence, and then we're also responsible for examining that digital evidence. And digital evidence, it's basically anything that can store data. So today it's your laptops, your cell phones, even your smartwatches, but sometimes we took stuff off of DVRs and gaming stations and things of that nature.
Then, you also worked as a digital evidence instructor?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what is that?
That is where I moved up to headquarters and I was responsible for the training program to get new FBI digital forensic examiners up to speed, and then I also conducted those training classes as well.
At the time you left the FBI, what was your job title?
Digital evidence instructor, and then I still maintained my senior forensic examiner title at that time.
Do you have any certifications for digital forensics?
I do.
What are those?
I have several different ones. The 2 first ones I'd like to share with you come from the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists, that's known as IASIS. I have their Certified Mobile Device Examiner certification and I also have their Certified Forensic Computer Examiner certification. And then, I also have another certification from Axiom, which is a forensic software company, and I use their software to conduct my examinations, and so they have me as an Axiom Certified Forensic Examiner, stating I know how to use their tool appropriately. And then, I also have another Computer Forensic Examiner certification from another independent body known as JIAC. And then, finally, I'm also a licensed private detective in the state of Nebraska.
Do you also have a certification for Celebrite?
I formerly had a certification for Celebrite, was in the FBI. I let that lapse since I no longer use it. And then, I was also a former cell phone certified examiner in the FBI, as well.
What do you do now?
I do a couple of different things. The main thing that I do is provide the digital forensic examination and consulting, and then I also am an adjunct professor at 2 different universities.
Have you tested as part of your work as a digital forensics examiner or analyst? Have you ever testified before?
Yes, I have. I've testified 3 times for the government when I worked for the FBI, and then I most recently testified for the defense this year in August in St. Croix.
And was all of that testimony concerning digital forensics?
It was.
Now, when you worked for the FBI, did local law enforcement agencies send you phones for extractions or examinations?
Yes. They would work with a special agent in the FBI to open up an FBI case, and then he could bring me the evidence from the local agency to work on.
And was that a service that the FBI provided agencies such as the Indiana State Police?
Yes.
And when you perform, well, let me ask you this, I'm sorry, do you have your own business now?
I do.
What is that called?
It is called Silicon Prairie Cyber Services, LLC.
And at some point in the last few months, were you contacted to review some materials in this matter?
I was.
And who contacted you?
You did.
All right. And did we enter into an agreement for you to conduct those services?
Yes. You signed my letter of engagement.
And you bill your time?
I do bill my time.
And is that how you earn a living?
It is how I earn my living.
What is your normal hourly rate for digital forensic work?
My normal hourly rate is $400 an hour.
And what are you charging us in the case?
In this case, it's $300 an hour.
In terms of what is usual and customary in the field of digital forensics and expert testimony, do you know where your hourly rate falls?
Yes. I'm right in the middle. There are some a little higher and some a little lower.
And how many hours did you work on this case?
On this case, I've spent about 65 hours doing the actual examination and then probably about another 15 hours of prep for the testimony.
What materials did you review in this matter?
In this matter, I reviewed the cell phone extraction from Libby's iPhone.
Now, I think there were a couple.
There were.
Which ones did you review?
The one I reviewed in detail was obtained in October of 2011, SIP. I looked at the...
I'm gonna stop you for a minute.
Certainly.
Was it 2011 or 2017?
I'm sorry, 2017.
Okay.
Yes, 2017.
And was that an extraction that was completed by Brian Bunner of the Indiana State Police?
Yes, it was.
Did you review any other reports or data as it relates to this case?
Yes. I also reviewed the Celebrite reports that they provided from their analysis. They had a couple of other reports from a tool known as ILEAP, and then I also reviewed their written reports, as well.
By written reports, are you referring to First Sergeant Christopher Cecil's reports?
I am.
And there were some appendixes to First Sergeant Cecil's second report, do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Did you review those?
I also reviewed the appendixes.
And finally, I believe you also may have reviewed some depositions.
Yes, I reviewed those as well.
And what depositions did you review?
Just First Sergeant Cecil's depositions.
Now, can you explain to us, generally speaking, what kind of information ion is stored on an iPhone?
Certainly. There is a lot of different types of information. There's probably the information that you're all familiar with, at least a little bit, right? It can take pictures, so you have your photos and videos. You can have your text messages. You can send and receive phone calls. You can use many different apps too.
Would you like me to take that from you, so you're not holding on to it?
Thank you.
Now, just generally speaking as kind of an overview, when you conduct an examination, is this just kind of clicking on all the files and reading the content, like if I went through my Word directory?
No. It is much more complex than that.
Can you tell us kind of generally speaking what this involves?
Yes. So part of a lot of what my examination is doing more than just like reading text messages and looking at pictures and videos and reading emails. I'm getting, so to speak, under the hood. I'm getting underneath the operating system and I am looking at all of the things that are taking place on the phone and the stuff that the user can't touch, the stuff that the user can't control, and I use forensic software to help me do that just because it is so technical. There's things that are basically encrypted that I can't read with the naked eye, and it's so voluminous, there's so much of it, there's so many,
What type of, in reviewing all the extractions and the reports, what forensic software has been used by various people, Indiana State Police, yourself, to view the data from Libby's cell phone?
There has been a lot of different software used. I couldn't even name off the top of my head everything that the Indiana State Police used, but I'm going to talk about the high-level things that were used the most. So certainly, the Indiana State Police used Celebrite to get the data off of the phone. They also used it to review that data during the course of their examination and their analysis. They also used Axiom, they used ILEAP, and there's some other software that I did not use, so I couldn't recite those for you off the top of my head. As for me, my primary tool was Axiom, and that's what I used to do the bulk of my analysis. I also reviewed their Celebrite reports, their digital reports that I could interact with on the computer. I looked at those as well, and then I also used two different kinds of database software. One is called DB Browser for SQLite, and then the other one is called Forensic Browser for SQLite. And I used those because it's just much easier to work with those database files in those programs, rather than trying to do everything in Axiom.
So why do we have a program called Celebrite and a program called Axiom when we're all interacting with the same data?
Every tool can do something a little different, or it can display the data a little different, and I think it's just part of the, competitive marketplace. Choose what you like.
Now, in terms of my understanding is digital forensics analysis would include an extraction and an examination. Is that correct?
Yes, those are the two main parts.
Okay. Tell us what an extraction is.
Sure. The extraction is the process where you go about trying to get all of that phone, get all of that data, get all the information and files off of that phone, and so you're using a tool to do that, and then you're going to save all that information in a special format on a hard drive. And then later, you should make a copy of that extraction for any analysis or examination or viewing that you want to do.
Why is it important to do it in that order?
Because if you just, get on the phone to start your examination, you're changing things. And by changing things, you could also start to make things disappear, because sometimes, there's only so much room to hold everything, so old stuff gets deleted off the phone.
And you yourself did not perform an extraction, is that correct?
That is correct. I did not perform an extraction.
Everything that you viewed came from the Indiana State Police?
That is correct.
Now, you did, however, let me ask you this real quick. The Indiana State Police, one of the programs they used was Celebrite.
Yes.
Is that a pretty popular program that is used every state, other countries?
Yes. It's used all over the world. It's hugely popular in law enforcement.
And are there different different categories, different types of?
There are.
Can you explain that?
Sure. There are 3 different types, and they all get a little bit different data. There is the full file system, which is the one we want as forensic examiners to do our examination, because it's giving us not only the user's information and files, it's also giving us everything from that operating system, all of the logs and databases and preferences that the user can't touch or manipulate. And then, there's 2 other levels. The next one is Advanced Logical, that gives you more of just the user's files and some preference files, but it's not going to give you the database files or the logs that tell more of the story. And then, the final one is just the Logical, and that's really just sort of the bare bones minimum of files that you can get off of a phone.
When you were at the FBI and you were doing extractions, is there a kind of a best practice?
The best practice is to always work to try to get that full file system off of the phone first, and you try to get it off, 'cause sometimes, honestly, it's a phone, it's on, it's live, it's changing. Sometimes you just have to try 2, 3, 4 times before you get it to go all the way through. And whatever you're doing, you make sure to document it. If you can't get it off and it fails, you note all of that stuff. If you try again, you note all of that stuff and you write it up in your report.
Now, on February 15, 2017, Brian Bunner of the Indiana State Police did a logical extraction, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's just kind of the over-the-hood stuff?
Yep, that's just the basic user stuff, so like text messages, pictures.
Do you know, did Celebrite have the ability to obtain a full file system extraction or a physical extraction of an iPhone in February of 2017?
Yes. Using the version of Celebrite listed on the Celebrite report, it did have the ability to extract that full file system from an iPhone 6s, which is Libby's cell phone, running iOS 10.2, which is the operating system on her cell phone. The only exception would be is if the person who owned the phone had previously conducted an iTunes backup that was encrypted to their computer, and that just means they made a copy of it, but then they also basically put a password on it so nobody else could see what it was if they had access to their computer.
Now, the full file system extraction was not conducted until October 5 of 2017.
Correct.
And did that delay cause any issues?
That delay did cause issues, yes.
What issues?
Because of the delay and then the phone being shut off and on several times, in February and then again in September and again in October of 2017, every time you turn off a phone and then turn it back on, you're losing information just because of that action of shutting it off. You're losing some of the temporary files. But then, as the phone ages, files get older and some files will start to drop off at, 28, 30 days old. So by the time it got to October, it was, over 6 months had passed and so I lost some data.
Was there a specific piece of data that you felt would be helpful that was missing because of that?
The main piece of evidence that I felt was missing is a file called the current power log, and that tells you exactly when a phone shut off, and that one only stays for basically every time you shut it on. The next time you shut it off, the previous stuff is wiped out. So basically, one cycle of on, off, you're gonna lose data. And so, I didn't have any idea from that log when the cell phone shut off on February 14th of 2017. And it also contains a lot of other information about what's happening on the cell phone, such as if it went into airplane mode.
Now, there are current power log entries on First Sergeant Cecil's timeline.
Yes.
So some of that data did remain on the phone, is that right?
Some of it is there. There is a lot of it from October of 2017.
But the last time it switched it off, that is now missing?
Yes.
All right. Now, Stacy, can you tell us you examined the data from the phone?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could, tell us your process.
Sure. So when I first started this case, I asked, what are your 2 main priorities, and we'll start with that, because time and budget is always an issue, and at the time it was, we want to see what was going on in the Apple Health database, so what was going on with steps and distances, and then the other main point of concern was what was happening on the phone at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th to make it suddenly receive all these text messages, what happened then, what happened right before it, so that's where I started.
And were you, in terms of, let's start with the Apple Health data?
Certainly.
Well, let me ask you, I'm gonna backtrack, I'm sorry. Did you download the Knowledge C database?
I did, yes.
Okay. And tell the jury, if you could, what the Knowledge C database is, what it does.
The Knowledge C database is one of the main databases that is tracking a lot of what you are doing on your phone and what is happening on your phone. So as your screen comes on and off, it records that. It can also record your battery percentage. It records the app that you were looking at and for how long, so it can tell that you're switching between Snapchat and then you're going in to send an email. It's logging all sorts of information like that, so it's very insightful as to what you were doing on the phone and what was happening.
And that is information that is direct from the extraction, is that correct?
Yes, I exported it straight from the extraction.
Okay. And then, did you also pull out part of those as kind of separate exhibits?
Yes, I did.
All right. So first of all, let's just start with. Your Honor, I'd move to admit Defendant's Exhibit TTT, which is the Knowledge C database. Defendant's Exhibit TTT offered.
Judge, I'm gonna need time to examine that.
That is the Knowledge C.
I haven't been shown that before today, so I don't know what is contained in the ZIP drive. So Judge, I'm gonna need a moment here to examine that.
All right. Well, while they're looking at that, let's do this. Stacy, you also examined First Sergeant Christopher Cecil's timeline.
I did.
And that has previously been admitted as Defendant's Exhibit E. Does that look familiar to you?
Yes, that looks familiar.
Okay. And you also reviewed Christopher Cecil's August 18, 2024, report, which is State's Exhibit 227?
Yes.
Now, with respect to Exhibit E. Excuse me. Before we go on, would counsel approach?
Sidebar conference conducted.
You've moved an exhibit, he's asked for time to review it, and we're going on to other things while he's reviewing. Okay. I can give him time. That's fine.
I just need to quickly review this.
That's fine.
And see what it is.
And why didn't we get this before 5 minutes ago? Well, they've had it since 2017.
So you're saying it's part of the extraction?
Yeah.
It may be. I didn't see the zip drive.
Okay. So you didn't have the zip drive?
Right.
Okay. How long's it gonna take you to?
Just give me 40 seconds to see what it is.
Okay.
Sidebar conference concluded.
Okay, Judge. The state's had a chance to examine Defendant's Exhibit TTT, and I have no objection.
All right. I'll show TTT is admitted without objection. Defendant's exhibit TTT admitted. Thank you. Okay. Stacy, you. Your Honor, is it all right if she comes down? Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Judge, can we scoot the TV back at all so?
Can you?
We can see it.
I don't want to touch your very expensive.
You've been touching it the whole trial, now you don't want to.
No, I actually haven't, but I will. I'm happy to.
Not too much, because I want them to be able to see it. There you go. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Can everybody see it? Okay. You stand here.
Okay.
Please. Okay. This is a lot of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff.
Okay. Can you explain to us what this is and how you interact with data such as this?
Sure. So this is the knowledge seed database that I was speaking about earlier, where it's recording, your power percentages, your screen going on and off, and what app you're looking at. There's tons of information stored about it, and one of the main things in there, of course, besides the action, is the date and the time as being recorded, as well. But this is a huge database, and it does not end here at column L, it continues to go on, and a lot of the really meaningful information to the naked human eye in terms of words that we can understand tends to be at the end of the database, so if you can continue to scroll.
Why don't I do it over here?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just motioning this way.
Yeah. So we're scrolling right.
Yes.
And this is all data?
Yep.
Okay.
So the data that stops at column AG in the database, and this is also a view that's very similar to what I would see in a database. A database is very similar to working in an Excel spreadsheet, it's just a little more fancy, it does some more complicated things, but viewing one table looks just like this in the database viewer that I use.
Now, at the end then, in column AH, there is a column titled Z metadata viewed as text. What can you explain that?
Yes. So typically when I'm in my database viewer, and as I mentioned AG, which is called Z metadata, is the last column, so if you scroll all the way over to the right when you're looking at it, this is going to be the last thing you see. And depending on the type of information that's in there, if it's more complicated and robust data, the database viewer is going to just say, blob. That's what mine shows. Other ones might show it a little bit differently, but mine says, blob. And so one of the things I first do is I will go into that column and change the view and see what I can see when I'm looking at it as text to see if I can see any human words that I recognize.
Why do all these columns start with Z?
I don't know, you'd have to ask Apple why they name things the way they name things.
But they're all Z?
They do a lot of Z stuff. They like tab Z, they like tab ZZ, and ZZZ, and so you've got a table that just has a lot of columns starting with ZS at the beginning of the names for whatever reason they chose.
Okay. I'm gonna put that down. If you want to.
Okay.
Now, Your Honor, may I publish Defendant's Exhibit P? You already published PPP. I didn't publish it earlier. Oh, Defendant's P, okay, wait a second. Yes, you may publish. Thank you. How are you publishing it? Pardon? How are you publishing? On the screen. On the display. Thank you. Defendant's Exhibit P published. Now, Stacy, this is First Sergeant Cecil's timeline, is that correct?
Yes.
And generally speaking, are there things on his timeline that you agree with?
Generally, yes.
Are there items on this timeline you do not agree with?
There are a few items that I disagree with.
And are there items on the timeline that you were able to dig a little deeper and get us some better answers?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Let's start with the things that you do not agree with as it relates to this timeline.
The things that I don't agree with were the date and time that some of the iMessages, FaceTime phone calls, and some of the voicemails were delivered onto Libby's iPhone between the 13th and 14th of February, 2017.
Turn this on for a moment. Was there a time when Libby's cell phone did not connect to a cell phone tower?
Yes. I noticed throughout the course of the afternoon on February 13th, there were times where it was not connected to a cell phone, just off and on.
And when was the last time that Libby's cell phone connected to a cell phone tower on February 13th, 2017?
The last time it connected to the cell phone tower on February 13th was 5:45 p.m. that day.
When is the next time the cell phone reconnected to a cell phone tower?
It next reconnected to the cell phone tower the next day, February 14, 2017, at 4:33 a.m.
Now, in your field of digital forensics, is it customary and usual for you also to review records from cell phone providers?
Yes.
And did you, in fact, review any records from Libby's cell phone provider?
I did.
What did you review?
I reviewed information related to the pings being sent to the cell phone and also location information that was logged by AT&T.
Now, I'm gonna show you Defendant's Exhibit QQQ.
Yes.
Can you, please, tell us what that is?
This is a report, a log from AT&T called the Historical Precision Location Information, and
I'll stop you there.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'd move to admit Defendant's Exhibit QQQ. Defendant's Exhibit QQQ offered.
A few foundational questions, Judge. Is this the entire log that you looked at when examining the historical precision location information?
I looked at more records than this.
Okay. And do you have training on how to accurately read the historical precision location information?
I received this training when I was in the FBI.
And when was that?
Would have been sometime during my time there, probably 2009, when I started doing more of the cell phones.
And did that at that time? You couldn't have possibly considered the information with cell tower networks and network engineering for cell towers in 2017, correct?
Maybe.
Have you had any training on this since 2009?
I have not had any formal training. It's been conversations taking place at conferences where somebody's presenting information of their research or just, keeping up with information and trends through research and reading on the internet, as well.
Have you had any training in any kind of network engineering or network capability here in Carroll County and from 2017?
I have not.
Do you work for AT&T?
I do not.
I don't have any other foundational questions, Judge. The state objects. I don't believe this is the complete log at this point, and so I'm gonna object to completeness, Judge. And I can't remember, did we stipulate to this on the stipulations?
We did.
Okay. Then I don't have a foundational problem, Judge, but a foundational issue. But I think there's more to this log than just this page. And the other objection is I'm not sure she's qualified to talk about what's within this log.
May I follow up? Sure. Stacy, are the form of this record, the historical precision location information, has the form of that changed at all since you received your formal training?
No, it's the same basic format.
Okay. And you attend seminars related to your expertise and your work. Do they present on things like this?
Yes.
And you continue to attend those seminars?
I do.
Would there be anything about anything that happens in Carroll County that would affect this report?
Not to my knowledge.
Your Honor, two things. First, in terms of completeness, I didn't want to overwhelm the jury. This is page 1 of several hundred pages, but this contains the pertinent time period that we're referring to. The way the doctrine of completeness works, as I'm sure the court is aware, that if Mr. McClelland wants to admit the rest of the document, he can certainly do so. Anything further, Mr. McClelland?
No, Your Honor.
All right. I will show QQQ is admitted over objection. Defendant's Exhibit QQQ admitted. May I publish, Your Honor? Yes. Defendant's Exhibit QQQ published. I'm gonna give you that.
Okay.
You may proceed. Thank you, Your Honor. Stacy, what does the and historical precision location information, identified as Exhibit QQQ, tell us about Libby's cell phone's connection to the cell phone tower between 5:44 on February 13, 2017, and 4:33 a.m. on February 14, 2017?
It tells us the date and time of that last connection, along with the location, the approximate location of where the cell phone was connecting at, and it's giving that location by giving the longitude and the latitude.
Now, what lines should we be looking at here?
So for the location, they're over towards the right, just the longitude and the latitude, that's giving you a location.
Okay.
And then, if you work to the left, you have the connection time, which here is displayed in GMT, so we actually need to subtract 5 hours from this time.
I'm gonna stop you for a moment. Can you tell us what GMT is?
GMT stands for Greenwich Mean Time, and it's used interchangeably with UTC time, which is Universal Coordinated Time, and that time is basically gonna be the time that it is in London. It's kind of a global time. So wherever you are, if you say, 1 o'clock GMT, people know what you're talking about. 1 o'clock GMT, they do and have to figure out, oh, you said in Eastern, So when you're talking across the globe, this is the time that you're gonna use is GMT or UTC.
Are items stored on cell phones and cell phone records? Are those commonly stored as either UTC or GMT?
No, they're actually stored, especially on an iPhone, in a wild array of different time formats, and a lot of them are just like number, and it starts from like the number of seconds from January 1st, 1970. So there's a lot of crazy times, but when we do our exams, we're putting everything in UTC time, in that Universal Coordinated Time, so that way, no matter where you were when you did your exam, what time zone anything happened in, we're all talking about the same time, 1 o'clock UTC.
And on when it says connection time GMT, how does that relate to the time in Delphi, Indiana, on February 13th and 14th, 2017?
On February 13th and 14th of 2017, GMT was 5 hours ahead.
So all of these times, we need to subtract.
Yep.
5 hours?
Subtract 5 hours, yes.
Okay. Now, on this QQQ, there's an item 1.
Yes.
And what does that line associated with item 1 tell us?
That is the last connection date and time of Libby's cell phone.
What was the last date and connection time?
It was at February 14th, 2017 at 9:33 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, so if we subtract the 5 hours, that would be 4:33 a.m. on the 14th.
And line 2, the next line down, can you share with us what that tells us?
Yes. That one has a connection of February 13th, 2017, this says, the raw data says 22:44, which would be 10:44 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and now we're gonna subtract the 5 hours to get to your local time, so we're gonna be at 5:44 and some seconds p.m.
Was there also data on Libby's cell phone that correlated with this, that her phone did not connect between 5:44 on the 13th and 4:33 on the 14th?
Yes. There were numerous pieces of data that showed it last connected on the 13th at 5:45 p.m. We see a call come in and then, after that, it says, it's disconnected and it's trying to reconnect. And then it also logs when your apps, the things you're doing, are using data and how much data it's using, and there was no data logged in between those two times, and those TWO times being, basically, 5:45 p.m. on the 13th and then no data being used until the 14th at 4:33 a.m.
Now, the timeline we looked at earlier, I think I've still got it up. First Sergeant Cecil's timeline shows, does it show iMessages coming in between 5:44 and 4:33?
It does.
Okay. How would that happen?
So an iMessage is very similar to a text message, except this is Apple's proprietary method of sending short messages, and this was invented a long time ago because you used to have to pay per every text message you sent, so to get around that, on an iPhone you could send the iMessages, which used data instead, and the data could include using Wi-Fi, so people would use this to message over Wi-Fi. And today it still holds true, if you do not have a cellular data connection, if you do not have a Wi-Fi connection, you cannot send or receive those iMessages. But in between that iMessage going from me to you, it hits the Apple server, and the Apple server will put a date and timestamp on it as to when it was sent from the sender to the receiver.
So even though there are items in the timeline and they're timestamped between 5:45 and 4:33, is there evidence that the phone actually received those at those times?
There is evidence that it did not receive those messages at those times, some of them. Again, it was intermittent throughout the day, so some iMessages were coming in on time and some weren't.
Was there any iMessage that came in between 5:45 on the 13th and 4:33 on the 14th?
Yes, but, well, it was not delivered then.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
Words are important. So even though it was timestamped, it wasn't delivered until another time?
Correct.
And was that time after 4:33 a.m. on the 14th?
I'd have to go back and look to see what the timestamps were specific to those iMessages.
Okay. Now, according to the timeline, if we look at lines 450, 451, 452, 453, 454, and 455, there are some calls background.
Yes.
Do you know when Libby's and then, if we go on down, there's a voicemail at on line 480 that is timestamped 6 o'clock, which is the line in pink right there.
Yes.
Did any of those, let's start with phone calls. Did any of the calls that are timestamped between 5:44 and 4:33, did you find evidence of when those actually arrived on the phone?
I could not find evidence of when the missed calls were missed on the phone, but I could find evidence of when the voicemails were left from those missed calls.
And what did you find as it pertains to the voicemails?
So there were numerous voicemails left between 5:45 p.m. on the 13th and between the morning of the 14th at 4:33 a.m., but they were not delivered to the phone during that time frame.
When were the majority of them delivered?
They were not delivered to the phone until, well, the voicemail recordings were not recorded on the phone until the 17th of February.
And is that another log on the phone?
That is another log. I can see when you receive your voicemails.
Now, as part of your work, are you familiar with the concept of a cell phone ping?
Yes.
What is a cell phone ping?
A cell phone ping is basically a technical way to say from one technical device to another, "Hey, are you out there?" And so when you ping, you'll say, "Hey, device, are you there?" If it is and it receives it, it'll say, "Yes, I am." And then it'll send that message back, and then, hopefully, the sender of the ping receives that message back that yes, they're there. Very simple version of how that works.
And our cell phone pings, how are those different from the cell phone tower data that we just kind of looked at from Libby's phone?
The differences I see is that AT&T is repeatedly trying to ping that cell phone after 5:45 p.m., it's doing it periodically, and it never successfully pings that cell phone again until approximately 4:33 a.m. on the 14th.
So are there 3 data points that all confirm that there's no cell phone tower connection between 5:45 on the 13th and 4:33 on the 14th?
There's at least 3.
And what are those?
The AT&T pings, when the voicemails are delivered, and then the lack of data usage being logged.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna move on. Let's talk Apple Health data.
Okay.
How does an iPhone record or log iPhone health data or health data?
So only Apple truly knows the secret sauce of how it's doing all of the recording for the health data, but foundationally what it's doing, it is measuring the movement and the vibrations of the phone to figure out, your steps, and there is hardware built into the phone that helps it figure that stuff out.
I didn't ask, so let me back to 4:33 a.m.
Okay.
And I forgot to ask you a question. Do you have an explanation for why the phone, if it was stationary in one place, under a shoe under a body, between 5:44 on February 13, 2017, and 4:33 a.m. on February 14, 2017, do you have an explanation as to why it did not connect to the tower between 5:44 on the 13th and 4:33 on the 14th?
I could find no evidence on the phone to suggest what happened, so I can only conclude something external to the phone changed.
What might that be?
It could be any number of things.
Can you tell us some of them?
The phone could have moved. The phone signal could have been being blocked during that time by several different methods. I think those are the main ones that I think of off the top of my head.
What about metal?
I'm sorry, what?
What about metal?
Oh, metal? I suppose metal can also block cell phone signals. Think about like when you go into a building and you're in an elevator, that's where your calls tend to drop.
But we don't know what happened?
I could find no evidence of what happened on the phone.
Okay. And I apologize for that. Now we go back to the Apple Health data.
Okay.
And so did Libby. Well, let me ask you this. Is there research on the accuracy of steps recorded, distance recorded, and elevation?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Can you tell the jury about that?
Yep. So this research comes from the Forensic Science Institute in The Hague in the Netherlands, if you're familiar with that, but anyways, they're a big deal and they do a lot of really good forensic research. And so they decided to go out and research this Apple Health data and they documented, it's logging all of your steps and elevation changes and distance changes, even if you did nothing to set it up, but they set out to figure out just how accurate is it, and their research demonstrated that there are a lot of different things that can impact how accurate it is. They did note that steps tend to be the most accurate. Distance can be off as much as 30–40% either way. They also said the type of motion that you're doing can greatly impact it, as well. So if it's more vigorous motion, you're gonna get credit for a bunch of extra steps, a bunch of extra distance, where if you're hardly moving, such as like a casual walk, very slow, start, stop, it's not gonna log it or not log very much of it, cause there's just not enough difference to detect those changes.
Now, First Sergeant Cecil, in States Exhibit 227, on page 8, outlined some Apple Health data as it relates to steps and distance.
Yes.
And did you agree with what he has in his report as to steps and distance?
Yes. I saw the same information.
Is there a circumstance in which a phone can move, but it's not record D in Apple Health?
If the phone is moving in a vehicle, it can note the difference between driving in a vehicle versus a person walking, so it's not going to give you step credits for driving in a car, even though there was distance traveled.
And does an iPhone 6s, such as Libby had, does that log steps or movement if it is powered off?
No, it does not.
Do you know whether Libby's phone was dead when it was found on February 14, 2017?
Well, when it was found, my understanding is it was powered off. Again, I'm missing that log. I didn't have any data in the log to say exactly when it shut off.
And was there any activity on Libby's cell phone after 4:35 a.m. on February 14, 2017, that would suggest that her phone was on?
No, there was no data logged, nothing logged.
Okay. Now, the timeline created by First Sergeant Cecil, is this kind of a general analysis of what was contained in a Celebrite and Axiom report?
Yeah. I would say it's general, maybe more high level. It doesn't have all the details, but it's got a lot of good data points of where it's coming from, times, and what happened overall.
Okay. And I'm going to direct our attention when you reviewed this. Well, I think we already talked about that. Okay. So I want to look at line 458 of First Sergeant Cecil's report.
Yes.
And it says Knowledge C, audio output route, February 13th, 2017. We're gonna adjust this for military time, 5 hours 45 minutes and 45 seconds, audio output route start time. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that row.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree it's written there.
Okay. And if you look at First Sergeant Cecil's report on page 4, does he address audio output route?
Yes.
And what does he tell us about that?
He says in his description box that the research is incomplete, but depending on the value, it could mean any number of things based on the numbers written there. So, for example, 0, not known, 1, if there's a value of 1, it means a headset is plugged in, 2, a headset is unplugged, or 3, is call activity, 4, user selected speaker, or 8, unknown. And it also said that it could relate to the device's built-in microphone, receiver, speaker, or headphones, and that it may also include information about Bluetooth MAC addresses, Bluetooth device name, and protocol.
Do you agree that the research is incomplete?
No. Now, in 2024, this research is complete.
And does the research now confirm these numbers that First Sergeant Cecil has in his report?
I'm gonna object, Judge. It's a leading question.
Sustained. What does the research now tell us concerning the numbers contained in First Sergeant Chris Cecil's report?
The research today tells us that there are no numeric values. For example, number 1 is headphones.
And were you able to dig a little deeper and find out what happened at 5 hours 45 minutes and 24 seconds as it relates to an audio output route start time?
Yes, I was.
And is that contained in the Knowledge C database?
Yes, it is contained in the Knowledge C database.
Your Honor, if I could publish. Publish what? I'm sorry. I forget what exhibit it is, it's the Knowledge C database. TTT. You published that before by display. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Back to TTT, you pulled out a couple of rows of data to make it easier for us to look at, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so if we look at audio output route, are these the lines of data that you pulled out?
Yes, those are the lines of data I pulled out directly from the Knowledge C database.
Okay. Can you step down and explain this to us, please?
Yes.
All right. What does this mean?
Okay. The main thing we want to know about here is just this C_PK19600, this is just the row number assigned in the database for tracking purposes. And then, all the way through here is not very meaningful to the case.
Should I scroll right?
Keep scrolling to the right.
Well.
And scroll back a little.
That was a little too far, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a little too far.
Sorry.
We want to see some dates and times.
Okay. So this date is February 13th at 1:38. Should I scroll down?
Yeah. There were several audio output events that day, this is the first one, but if you scroll to the bottom of this tab, you'll see the last one of the day.
Okay. And what does the information here tell us?
This information tells us that, on February 13th at 10:32 p.m., this record was created.
Okay.
And then, if we move over, we have some more dates and times.
If we look at Z start date in red, which is the last column there on the right.
Yes.
In red, what does that tell us?
That tells us when this event first started happening, which is at 5:45 p.m. Eastern on the 13th.
When did it end?
It ended at the, in column Y, Z end date, at February 13th at 10:32 p.m.
And should I scroll to the right?
Scroll over to the right.
Oh.
That's fine.
I keep doing that.
Go over one more.
Oh, now I'm at the top.
There we are. Just a tiny bit.
Now, when the column next to Z start date, where it says Z value double, what does that tell us?
This is the numeric values that First Sergeant Cecil was talking about in this report. So in this case, it's logging the number 1.
And according to Chris Cecil's report, what does that mean?
Number 1 means the headphone.
Headphone what?
A headphone being inserted.
Okay. And is there additional data in here that confirms that those are wired headphones?
Yes. So when I was viewing it in my database viewer, it said, blob, so the first thing I did was view the text information about the blob to learn more about what type of data it was, so I could convert it to the appropriate viewable format. But immediately when I okayed at it as text, I could see in here entries for, inaudible, headphones, and then the words, wired headphones.
Okay. Thank you. You can go ahead and have a seat.
Okay.
Stacy, I have an iPhone 6s, and what are these?
Those are headphones.
Wired headphones?
Wired headphones.
And when it says audio output start at 5:45 on February 13th, 2017, can you demonstrate for us what that means?
Yes.
Hand you the wired headphones and the cell phone.
So what happened was somebody took a headphone jack and inserted it into the hole at the bottom, because this was probably your most typical headphone. I won't say most typical, it was a typical way to listen to sound on your phone, and they inserted it into the hole at the bottom at 5:45 p.m. on the 13th.
What happened at 10:32 p.m. on February 13th, 2017, to Libby's cell phone?
Then someone removed that cable from the phone. And I should clarify that the phone can't tell if it was specifically like these headphone cables or if it was like an AUX input cable when you want to connect your phone to your car to listen to music, but it's definitely says some sort of cable that looked like this was plugged into the phone and then later removed on the 13th.
Are those pretty secure connections?
They are.
Can you think of any explanation for a AUX port or headphones being plugged in and unplugged that does not involve human interaction with that phone?
I cannot think of any explanation that does not involve humans.
What was the practical effect for that cell phone at 5:45 on February 13th, 2017, by plugging in an AUX port or headphones?
By plugging in the cable, you would stop sound from coming out of the phone.
As if you wanted to hide it?
Objection, Judge. That's a leading question. Calls for speculation.
Sustained. Withdrawn. What happened immediately before an AUX port or headphones were plugged into that phone?
There was an incoming phone call like milliseconds apart from milliseconds right before the headphone cable was inserted.
Stacy, I want to go back real quick to Apple Health data. There was also an entry at 2:32 p.m. about flights climbed?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Those are floors, steps climbed.
And is each flight approximately 10 feet?
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further. Mr. McClelland.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Eldridge, I want to start with a little bit of your information on your CV. What training have you had on cell phone extractions?
I received training on conducting cell phone extractions myself back when I was in the FBI, and recently my training is just about the manner in which they.
And that training? Are you talking about the training that started in February of 2023?
What did I have listed as February of 2023? Can you refresh my memory?
Sure. You have Magnet Forensics, Magnet Virtual Summit, SANS applying the findings of Verizon DBR. You have several there that begin in February of 2023. You said most recently you had some training on I forget the words you used, but on how to extract the stuff. Is that the training you're talking about from February 2023 to current?
There would have been some high-level topics discussed back in February 2023, but the most current information would have been from April of this year, and then I also attended more training in October of this year, which has not made it onto that CV yet.
And that this training you received most recently? Tell me again, what is that training for? Is that on how to extract information from cell phones?
The training is about how to, it focuses primarily on how to process that extracted data appropriately.
And prior to that training, the other training you had is when you were with the FBI?
Yes, that I have documented, yes.
And what year was that?
In I believe 2009.
So between 2009 and April of 24, you didn't have any training on how to.
Not that I can recall.
Okay. And then, when you talked about testifying 4 times prior, it looks like the testimony in 2007, 2009, and 2011 well, 2007 and 2009, did those deal with computers?
Yes, they did.
Did the testimony in 2011 deal with computers or cell phones?
I think it involved both.
Okay. But you don't have the name of that case?
I don't. I've been trying to find it. My apologies.
And then the testimony in July of 2024, it dealt with a cell phone. Is that correct?
Yes, it specifically dealt with an iPhone.
But it dealt with video from that iPhone. Is that correct?
The primary focus was a video on the iPhone, but there were questions about how did it get there, the activities surrounding it, so there was a lot of database examination required in that case, as well.
But from my understanding from the transcript, your testimony was focused on just the video.
Yes.
Okay. And so is this the first time that you've testified about knowledge C databases and cell phone extraction analysis?
I would say that my previous testimony this year in July involved testimony about cell phone analysis.
Let's say the one in July did. Besides that, have you ever testified about any cell phone analysis or extraction or analysis of extractions?
Of cell phones, no.
Okay. You stated you examined the information that the extraction from Brian Bunner and then the report from Christopher Cecil in this case. Is that correct?
My primary focus was the extraction from October 2017, which was from Mr. Bunner, but then I also did one of Mr. Cecil's, as well.
Okay. Did you get any other information pertaining to this case to review in conjunction with those things?
Just the AT&T ping records.
Did you get any information about the facts involved with the case, for example, where the bodies were found, how they were killed, anything like that?
I received a rough location of where the bodies were found and where the cell phone was found. Other than that, nothing much, other than there was another female with Libby.
Okay. Did you go to the location where the cell phone was found?
I did not.
Okay. But you did have information of not only the GPS location of where the cell phone was found, but where within the crime scene it was found, meaning underneath the shoe underneath the body of Abby.
Yes, I was told that.
You had that information as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And through the reports that you examined, did you have an?
No, I did not have an opportunity to review all of the information that's been gathered by him between 2017 and 2024.
What information did you narrow your scope to?
My scope was narrowed down to, at first, reviewing the Apple Health data, the steps, elevation changes, and then what happened at 4:33 a.m. to cause those text messages to suddenly came, sick, in, and then I also worked backwards to see what was happening on the cell phone during that day.
So how far back into February 13th of 2017 did you go?
I looked closely all the way back to approximately 10:50 a.m. when the phone entered low power mode on the 13th.
And did you agree with the information that Chris Cecil reported up until 5:40 p.m. of that day?
Not all of it.
Okay. Did you get an opportunity to review the video that was found on the phone?
Yes, I did review the video.
Did you agree with the timestamp that was on that video?
I found no evidence of manipulation or changing it.
So yes, you agreed with the timestamp of that video?
Yes.
Okay. Did you agree with the GPS location of that video?
Yes.
And did you agree that the GPS location changed 4-second DS into the video?
I did not examine that closely.
Did you agree with you said you reviewed the Apple Health data? I'm sorry.
Yes.
And you agreed with that information that he had about the Apple Health data?
I said I saw the same information in Axiom as what is in his written report.
So that would lead me to believe that you agreed with what he had in his report was accurate. Is that correct?
I agree that the numbers and the data extracted and pasted into the report. I could not speak to perhaps any opinions he made in that, because I do not recall any opinions, if any, were documented in there.
That's fine. But the numbers entered in, the dates, the times, the steps, the distance, you agree that that data is accurate?
Yes, I agree with the steps and the numbers.
Okay. And so in that Apple Health data, You saw that the last recorded movement was at 2:32 p.m. Is that correct?
In the Apple Health database, that reports, sorry, I want to try to figure out how to explain this.
I don't need you to explain it, I just...
Well,
You reviewed that data, right?
I did review that data.
And you saw in that data that the last movement that he had recorded for.
Yes. But there is more step and elevation change data logged in a different database that is not reported out as Apple Health data that goes later.
Well, we may get to that, but...
Okay.
You had an opportunity to review that health app data, and you saw the last movement was at 2:32 p.m. on February 13th?
Yes.
And you agree, from that data, that the phone did not move between 2:32 p.m. on the 13th and 4:33 a.m. on the 14th?
I agree that it did not log any movement.
Okay. And so talked about the health app data and how it registers movement. Do you know, well, let me ask you this. You testified that the way it registers movement are by machinery or an accelerometer and a gyroscope within the phone. Is that correct?
I didn't use any of those terms.
Okay. How does it measure movement?
It's looking for vigorous motion and activity.
And that would lead one to believe that the phone has to move in order to register movement. Is that correct?
I believe it has to bounce up and down.
So that the movement doesn't have to be great, it can be a bounce up and down for it to register movement on the health app data?
There has to be some detectable motion, yes.
Okay. And you testified that it may not register if it is traveling in a vehicle.
Yes.
And I would assume, if it's traveling in a vehicle and it doesn't register movement, the phone is sitting stationary, not moving, correct?
Seems logical.
Okay. But if the phone has moved in the vehicle, it then could possibly log movement through the Apple Health data?
It's a possibility.
Okay. And you agree at least with the log that you reviewed from Christopher Cecil's report, and that you agree with shows that there was no movement logged through the Apple Health data from February 13th at 2:32 p.m. until the rest of the life of the phone?
Correct.
Okay. Now, between 2:32 p.m. on the 13th and 4:33 a.m. on the 14th, could you find any information showing that the phone was turned off?
No, there was no evidence that the phone was turned off that I could find.
Now, in Christopher Cecil's report you talked about the phone being out of service at I believe 5:45 p.m.
Right. That's the last known time it had service.
Before that, it was in service?
It was in and out of service before that time period, as well.
Okay. So if it was in and out of service, that means sometimes it could receive calls. If it was in service, sometimes it wouldn't.
Correct.
Correct? This may be a silly question, but my common experience has been that a phone, if you're in a poor service area, a phone can be sitting.
I've had that same experience, yes.
Okay. And do you know what kind of service is available in the area where the crime scene is located?
No.
Were you able to study the topography or the land contours in the area where the crime scene is located?
I did not.
Were you able to speak to a network engineer of any kind about what kind of service was available through Libby's phone in February of 2017?
I did not.
And so is it reasonable for the jury to believe that the phone, even though it wasn't moving, could have been going in and out of service at that time?
Could you be more specific about the time?
Sure. Between 2:32 and 5:45 p.m. on the 13th.
I'm sorry, could you, please, repeat the question?
Sure. I know that's a little confusing. I'm trying to work backwards. The phone stopped moving at 2:32, but it continued to get phone calls, FaceTime calls, iMessages, and text messages after that for a period of time.
Yes.
And your testimony is that it continued to get those until 5:45 p.m. on the 13th?
Intermittently, yes.
Intermittently. And you testified that the phone didn't move between that didn't register any movement on the Apple Health data between that time, correct?
That is what I testified, yes.
And then after that, it went out of service, and you're saying it didn't receive calls, even though calls are logged on Christopher Cecil's report. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
That was about the voicemails being recorded then.
Okay. But after 5:45, it continues to get FaceTime calls?
It does not continue to receive FaceTime calls after 5:45 p.m.
Okay. And then, at 4:33 a.m., it gets a bunch of activity, messages and things of the like. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, Could that explanation be that the phone was bouncing in and out of service and, for some reason, it bounced back into service at 4:33 a.m.? Would that be an explanation for why all those came in?
That could be an explanation.
Okay. And it seems a likely explanation, knowing that there's no movement shown on the Apple Health app data, right?
I don't know. I don't have any factual evidence that I could see on the phone to render that opinion.
You didn't find any evidence within the Knowledge C database that the phone had moved?
Not in the Knowledge C, no.
It seems to me that to plug in the headphones, you'd have to move the...
I think there's a difference between moving a phone across a room, across an area, versus picking up a phone.
But if the phone's moved across a room or moved across an area, that would register in the Health app data, right?
It might not.
If the phone was picked up or bounced, as you said before, that might register in the Health app data?
It might not.
So plugging in headphones could register in the Health app data?
It could. I did not test that.
You testified that one of the reasons the messages might have come in at 4:33 was the phone was moved. Do you recall that?
I'm not sure that I said that today.
Okay. I thought when Ms. Auger asked you for an explanation of why the voice or the text messages came in at 4:33 a.m., you said the phone could have been moved.
I said I didn't have any evidence as to what happened, but then she asked me for possible explanations.
Okay. But you don't have any evidence showing the phone was moved at 4:33 a.m.?
I don't.
You also said there could be a signal blocker. Is that was your testimony?
Yes.
Did I write that down right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what that is?
A signal blocker is something that will stop your cell phone from receiving the data connections to the cell phone tower, so you couldn't make or receive calls or connect to the internet.
And so that would be something a person would have to have on them to block the signal. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then your third explanation was metal from a building?
Yes.
But in order to get into a metal building, the phone would have to move.
It would have to be moved vigorously.
Yep. So it seems to me the most likely explanation was that the phone was going in and out of service, as opposed to these other explanations. Would you agree?
I don't have any evidence to base an expert opinion on that.
Well, you do though, because the phone was going. You have evidence the phone was going in and out of service, correct?
Your Honor, he's asking her for the most likely scenario, and she says she doesn't have that expertise.
She's given an expert opinion today, Judge, on possibilities. I'm showing how unrealistic her possibilities are, and that the realistic possibilities, the phone was going in and out of service, which she's testified to.
Overruled. If she can answer.
So you know the phone was going in and out of service from 2:32 p.m. on?
I could see evidence on the phone that it was going in and out of service between 2:32 p.m. in the afternoon and 5:45 p.m. in the afternoon. Then, after that, all I saw was that it was out of service for many hours until 4:33 a.m.
And the information from the Apple Health data you have is the phone is not moving?
Not during that time, correct.
So if it's going in and out of service, and it's not moving, is the most realistic explanation for why those text messages came in at 4:33 a.m. is, at that point, it reconnected to the service provider or the tower?
That could be a likely explanation.
I don't have any other questions, Judge.
Ms. Auger. Thank you. Stacy, how often do you work with the Knowledge C database in the course of your work?
It is one of the main databases that I work with. I also teach about it as part of my adjunct professing job.
So even though you may not frequently need to testify about it, do you feel that you're very knowledgeable about it?
Yes. I specifically teach mobile forensics classes at a university.
Did you review all of the pertinent information you felt you needed regarding Libby's cell phone from February 13th, 2017, and February 14th, 2017?
Judge, objection. It's a leading question.
Sustained. Was there any information you felt that you should have reviewed that you did not?
I felt that I reviewed the most important information in the number of hours I had.
And is there anything that you would have reviewed that then would have changed any of your opinions, do you think?
Well, if I would have had a full file system analysis from February of 2017, I could have reviewed more information, but other than that, I think this is the priorities.
Now, Mr. McClelland asked you about cell tower service and if you were familiar with cell tower service, if you'd studied the topography around the area where the bodies were found. You recall his questions?
Yes.
Is there a test, a service that law enforcement or experts can provide that actually tests where service exists and where it doesn't?
Judge, a few foundational questions, please.
Okay.
Ms. Eldridge, are you familiar with what capabilities Carroll County Sheriff's Department or the Indiana State Police have at their disposal?
I do not know.
Were you aware of what capabilities they had in February of 2017?
No.
Were you aware of what resources were available in the investigation into the deaths of Abby and Libby back in February 13th of 2017?
No.
Were you aware of what resources were available to the FBI during that time?
No.
Judge, I'm gonna object to the question. It calls for speculation.
Your Honor, they asked whether she's studied topography and about cell phone service, and so I think it's definitely relevant and responsive to that if there are things that could be done that contest that. The objection is speculation. Answer that. Oh. Ms. Eldridge, what is a drive study?
A drive study is kind of what it sounds like. You drive around and you see what sort of signals you're getting from whatever you're trying to measure. So in this case, it could be cell phone towers.
Do you know if that is something that the FBI CAS team engaged in?
Yes. And there was a document leaked in 2019 on the internet all about the stuff FBI does with that.
Do you know if they had that available to them in 2017?
I object to that, Judge. Again, same objection. It calls for speculation.
She can say if she doesn't know. If she knows. Overruled.
Theoretically, it would have been a service available.
Mr. McClelland asked you about having to move a phone to plug in an AUX cord. You recall his questions?
Yes.
If Abby's body was not on top of this cell phone at 5:45 p.m. on February 13th, 2017, would the phone have had to have been moved?
No, not necessarily.
And do you know where that phone was located when it was found on February 14th, 2017?
It was like...
Other than under the shoe under the body?
No.
And the same question, if Abby's body was not on top of the cell phone at 10:32 p.m. on February 13th, 2017, would the phone had to have been moved?
No.
And could it be that the phone didn't have to be moved enough to log a step?
Yes, that's correct.
And if the phone is in a vehicle, does it necessarily log movement?
No, it doesn't.
And one final thing, Ms. Eldridge, if, at 4:33 a.m., the phone is somewhere else and power's down, would it log movement?
It would not.
After that?
Log movement after that, no.
Nothing further. Mr. McClelland.
If the phone was not in a vehicle, but was being carried by someone, with your knowledge and expertise, would it log movement through the Apple Health data?
If it was being carried?
Correct.
It depends on where the phone is when it's being carried.
Okay.
As to how much gets logged, if anything.
Okay. And so, if it was carried from a phone to the middle of a woods, would it log data in the Health app data or movement?
Are you asking me if someone was just carrying the phone itself?
Right.
In their hand?
Right.
It would log movement.
Okay. And if it hit a bump in the car, a bump enough to affect the phone, it would log movement through the Apple Health data?
It would, but it would depend on, like, how many bumps. I do not believe just one bump would be enough to
Okay.
log a whole bunch of steps.
Not necessarily a whole bunch of steps, but it would log some movement?
From the research I read, it kind of takes a little bit for it to get going, to realize that it's in motion, so maybe...
If the phone was underneath the shoe underneath the body of a victim, and someone moved that body, pulled the phone out, plugged the headphones in, and then unplugged the headphones, and then put it back underneath the body, would you think that would register movement through the Apple Health data?
I don't know.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, Judge.
All right. Does anybody on the jury have any questions for Ms. Eldridge? And would counsel approach?
Sidebar conference concluded.
Did you ever write your own report from the timeline of events for Libby's iPhone 6s?
No objection.
No objection.
Would any of the Knowledge C database information be related to Libby's iPad, if she had it linked with her iPhone S?
No objection.
That's fine.
Or would the iPad have a separate Knowledge C database?
No objection.
I don't think that's relevant.
We're asking about the iPhone and if it's linked to the iPad, and then it said, or would the iPad have?
Oh,
A separate Knowledge C database.
Okay. Can I look at it? I'm kind of a visual person, just a sec. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Judge, if I could, ask the first one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's broken into questions. Yeah. There was a question mark at the end.
I don't have any objection to it.
I got it.
Inaudible.
Yeah. Yes, that's fine. Okay. Can you tell by iPhone data if the phone was on silent or if the ringer was volume to vibrate? That's fine. Is there a device or piece of equipment that, if inserted into the audio jack, would disable or scramble the phone signal for A?
Objection.
An objection? Okay.
If she knows, I guess I believe on that one, but typically inaudible.
Okay. Were you able or would you be able to review Richard Allen's historical precision location if he was using a Google Pixel phone from a provider called Tang?
No objection.
That's fine. Is it Tang or Ting? Ting.
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 TNG.
That's that orange stuff. Ting. How common was Ting as a provider in 2017? Is that an if you know?
Yeah.
That's definitely an if you know.
I don't know if she can answer that, but I think you can ask.
Would water or moisture affect movement?
No objection.
That's fine. Are there other ways or no, are there other ways?
No objection.
Did Libby's phone have those tools? Okay. So.
That would have been one of our questions.
Okay.
So I don't object to that.
And if so, what did those tools tell you? This is a multi-part. So are there other ways or apps? Did her phone have it? And if so, we can say, if she says yes, the phone had them, what did the measurements tell you?
That's if she answers yes.
Yeah. But I mean, did she have those tools, and if not, then we're done with it. Right. Okay. And then, can we take a break? I don't know where you're at with your case, I don't know if you've got another witness. Yeah, we can take a break. Okay.
Sidebar conference concluded.
Ms. Eldridge, did you ever write your own report on the timeline of events for Libby's iPhone 6s?
No, I did not because of the limited time.
Any follow-up, Ms. Auger? No. Mr. McClelland?
No, Your Honor.
Could any of the Knowledge C database information be related to Libby's iPad, if she had it linked with her iPhone 6s?
If it is, if anything is syncing, it logs that. I do not believe, off the top of my head, there was any syncing involved between the iPad and the iPhone.
Ms. Auger? No. Mr. McClelland?
If there was syncing involved, I'll retract that question, Judge. I don't have any questions.
Would the iPad sync? If so, would the iPad have a separate Knowledge C database?
The iPad has its own Knowledge C database. Typically, what's synced is not the data in the databases, it's things like your preferences and your pictures and files, videos, text message.
Ms. Auger? No. Mr. McClelland?
I don't have any questions, Judge.
Would water or moisture affect movement?
I do not know.
Ms. Auger? No. Mr. McClelland?
Judge, I hope this isn't outside the scope, but would water affect the port or the plug-in for the earbuds for the phone?
I have no knowledge that it would.
Okay. In your expertise, you've never experienced that water damage to a phone would affect what's able to be plugged into the phone?
Water damage could affect what could still be plugged in and work, but it wouldn't suddenly log like a headphone as plugged in all the time.
I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you.
Can you tell by the iPhone data if the phone was on silent or if the ringer was volume to vibrate?
I did not look at that information.
Ms. Auger? No. Mr. McClelland?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
If you know, is there a device or piece of equipment that could be inserted into the audio jack to disable or scramble the phone signal for a period of time?
I did research for that and I was unable to find anything.
Ms. Auger? Nope. Mr. McClelland?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Were you able or would you be able to review Richard Allen's historical precision location if he was using a Google Pixel phone through a provider called Ting?
If they have it available. I do not know what they store.
Ms. Auger? Nothing. Mr. McClelland?
Would you have to have the phone that he had on February 2nd of 2017 to be able to do that?
No.
Okay. No other questions, Judge.
If you know, how common was Ting as a provider in 2017?
I am unaware.
Ms. Auger.
No.
Mr. McClelland.
No questions, Judge. Thank you.
Are there other ways or apps that register phone movement other than Apple Health?
Yes, there are many different apps that can record movement. For example, WhatsApp records your movement.
Ms. Auger.
No.
Mr. McClelland.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Did Libby's phone have those tools?
I did not specifically look at any other things other than Apple Health.
Ms. Auger.
No.
Mr. McClelland.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Eldridge. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is an appropriate time for us to take our afternoon recess. While you're outside the courtroom, keep your minds open. Please don't form any opinions or conclusions about anything. You may discuss the evidence, but please, only do that if all of you are together in the jury room at the same time, and please, don't deliberate. Gentlemen.
All rise. Jury out at 3:46 p.m.
All right. Let's be back at 4 o'clock, please. And Jody, you can go off the record.
Off record at 3:46 p.m. On record at 4:06 p.m.
All right. We are back on the record. Are we ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor.
State.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So before we bring the jury back in, members of the court security staff that are in the back of the courtroom have advised the court that folks in the back are talking in the gallery. I've asked you repeatedly to not talk, it's distracting, we're picking some of your conversations up, and I'm pretty sure you don't want me to know what you're saying. Stop talking. If the court security staff observes anybody speaking in the courtroom, they will tap you on the shoulder and escort you out of the courtroom, and you will not be permitted back in for the proceedings. I hope I have made that perfectly clear, no talking. Could we bring in our jury, please?
Your Honor, we're going to have Ms. Eldridge in the courtroom while Mr. Cecil and Mr. Bunner testify.
Any problem with that?
No, Judge, no objection.
Okay.
Thank you.
All rise. Jury in at 4:09 p.m. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ms. Auger, you may call your next witness.
First Sergeant Christopher Cecil.
Witness sworn.
First Sergeant Cecil, can you give us your full name and rank again, please?